Sexy female teacher is pregnant with her ex-boyfriend's child. In order to leave the mountain village, she chose to marry an incompetent, rich second generation, but a month later she found out that she was pregnant with her ex-boyfriend's child. Chapter 1, Despair. That noon, when Ji Yuliching, W came to Chen Hongyun, W's room, Chen Hongyun was lying on the bed reading a book. "Why are you here at noon? Don't you usually want me at night?" Seeing Ji Yuliching enter, Chen Hongyun couldn't help but feel joy. He instantly thought of the sweet, happy things between them. Ji Yuliching locked the door, silently sat at the edge of the bed, and kept kicking a piece of chalk on the floor with her foot. "What happened?" Chen Hongyun asked, wrapping his arm around Ji Yuliching's shoulder. "I'm getting married." After a long pause, Ji Yuliching lowered her head and whispered. "Married? We agreed to wait a year. Why so soon?" Chen Hongyun asked, confused. They had been in a relationship for 6 years and worked together at the same elementary school for 3 years. They were together every day, and whenever they wanted to be intimate, they could. There was no difference from a married couple. They had originally agreed to consider marriage a year later. I'm getting married." Ji Yuliching emphasized the word I. "Aren't you marrying me?" Chen Hongyun still didn't understand. It seemed he hadn't grasped the meaning of Ji Yuliching's words. Ji Yuliching looked up and stared at Chen Hongyun's wide-open eyes. "I came to tell you today that I'm getting married. The wedding is in 3 days." Ji Yuliching said slowly, one word at a time. "Who are you marrying? Who is the man?" Chen Hongyun instantly roared. "That's none of your business. Hongyun, even though I'm marrying someone else, the man I love the most in my heart is still you. Do you believe me?" Ji Yuliching touched Chen Hongyun's face. "Love me? If you love me, why are you marrying someone else?" Chen Hongyun stood up, his veins bulging on his forehead in anger. "Hongyun, I love you, but I can't marry you. Please forgive me." Ji Yuliching also stood up. "Today, let's end it." Ji Yuliching hugged Chen Hongyun, pressing her head tightly against his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat. "Oh my God, what kind of woman is this? 6 years. Our 6 years of love, how can she just marry someone else like this?" Chen Hongyun felt his mind go blank, standing motionless in place and not responding to Ji Yuliching's embrace. Ji Yuliching raised her head and saw the anger in Chen Hongyun's eyes, feeling a little scared. Chen Hongyun's face was pale, and his eyes were wide open with fury, as if he were going to devour her. His expression was terrifying. "Hongyun, don't be like this. I have my reasons, but I love you. I will always love you," Ji Yuliching said, and impulsively kissed Chen Hongyun on the lips. "Get out. Since you've chosen to marry someone else, why come to me? Get out." Chen Hongyun turned his head and angrily pushed Ji Yuliching away. "Hongyun, you." Ji Yuliching did not expect that the Chen Hongyun, who once loved her so much, would treat her feelings so violently today. The man before her felt too unfamiliar and terrifying. A sadness and grievance she'd never felt before, along with inner pain and conflict, made Ji Yuliching lose control of herself. She silently sobbed and slowly walked toward the door. "Ching, don't go. I'll marry you, I will marry you tomorrow. You are my woman, forever." Chen Hongyun quickly walked over and embraced Ji Yuliching. Ji Yuliching turned around, tightly hugging Chen Hongyun, already crying uncontrollably. "Yun, I love you. I can't bear to leave you." Ji Yuliching choked up. "I love you too, don't leave me." Chen Hongyun excitedly kissed her lips. The past affection immediately burned between them. Chapter 2, No Control. The woman he had loved countless times, she was going to marry another man, taking all the emotions they shared together. Chen Hongyun, couldn't believe it, and he didn't want to believe it. But he knew Ji Yuliching's personality well. Once she made up her mind, nothing could change it. A deep sense of defeat surged within Chen Hongyun, the feeling of being abandoned and beaten flooding him from his feet up to the top of his head. His temples throbbed, and his veins bulged in an instant. "No, Yun, you're hurting me," Ji Yuliching cried out through her tears. But Chen Hongyun paid no attention. When he walked away from her, the despair inside Ji Yuliching spread through her entire body. These past few days had been her ovulation period. She couldn't afford anything to go wrong. Ji Yuliching lay on the bed, trembling with fear. 3 days later, Ji Liqing's wedding car slowly drove through the countryside. Their Gu Family Village Primary School, W, stood lonely amidst the fields. Suddenly, the figure at the school's entrance caught Ji Liqing's eye, Chen Hongyun, W. He must be feeling terrible today. Ji Liqing didn't dare to look at that familiar figure again. The wedding procession turned onto the national road, and the tall poplars on both sides quickly retreated, as if the long, Spring River dike, W, was walking alongside the car. That dike had held so many beautiful memories between her and Chen Hongyun. It was where, years ago, Chen Hongyun had given up a good job he had secured through his uncle, Li Jinsai, W's connections, and followed her to the remote Gu Family Village Primary School. Ji Liqing had been deeply touched by his sacrifice. They had once made a vow, in this life, they would marry no one but each other. Yet today, she was betraying that promise, becoming someone else's bride. 6 months ago, when her parents had been wrongfully bullied by the villagers, Ji Liqing had realized that she needed to leave Gu Family Village and become a person of power and influence in order to protect her family. Liqing, drink some water. Ji Shuhua, W, placed a bottle of mineral water into her hands. The man in front of her, from this day forward, would be her husband. After the tedious wedding, Ji Liqing lay exhausted on the bed. She had hoped to drift into a deep sleep, but her mind was in turmoil, with waves of darkness pressing down on her. In a daze, Ji Liqing felt Ji Shuhua taking off her shoes and washing her feet. Just as he was about to remove her jacket, Ji Liqing suddenly snapped awake. There were so many kiss marks on her body, if Ji Shuhua saw them, it would be over. She bolted upright. Ji Shuhua was startled by her reaction and exclaimed, "Did I wake you up? I'll do it myself." Ji Liqing muttered, her head lowered, sensing that her reaction wasn't quite right. But Ji Shuhua refused to let her go, saying, "We're married now. Let me help you." Ji Liqing wanted to refuse, but then she thought, now that she had entered this door, she had to accept everything willingly. Instead of making things awkward, it would be better to cooperate. So, she closed her eyes and said, "Turn off the light." Ji Shuhua hesitated for a moment before switching off the light with a click. She neither responded nor resisted, lying there passively as Ji Shuhua kissed her body. But Ji Shuhua seemed unable to wait any longer. His body trembled with excitement, but he couldn't find his way in. Chapter 3, Pregnant. In the darkness, Ji Liqing hoped he would finish quickly. She raised her hand, wanting to help him, but unexpectedly, Ji Shuhua froze, panting heavily as he collapsed on top of her. "What's wrong?" she asked, startled. I got too excited. I couldn't control it," he said dejectedly. "Sleep," she sighed in relief. In the dark, neither of them spoke again. Ji Liqing drifted into a deep sleep, returning to that simple dormitory in her dream, where Chen Hongyun, W, was smiling and waiting for her. But Ji Shuhua couldn't sleep at all. The failure from earlier left him frustrated. Could it be that he wasn't capable? Moreover, Ji Liqing's response to him had been so cold there was no sense of the newlywed bliss. Was it because she was too tired, or because of his inability? The next day, Ji Liqing and Ji Shuhua boarded a train from Xinjing, W, to Modu, W, starting their week-long honeymoon trip. On the first night in Modu, after Ji Liqing finished washing up, she lay on the bed reading a book. Ji Shuhua had finished his shower and walked over excitedly. He eagerly took the book from her hands and kissed her gently on the cheek. "Oh!" A heavy sigh escaped Ji Shuhua as he rolled off her body and lay at the edge of the bed. Ji Shuhua was so frustrated that he felt like slapping himself. Could it be that he really wasn't capable? The lackluster honeymoon ended, and when they returned home, both of them were exhausted. Especially Ji Liqing, who felt nothing like a newlywed wife. The trip had left her physically and mentally drained. Seeing the pain in Ji Shuhua's expression, every time she was about to speak, she forced herself to swallow her words. But the intense desire deep inside her was undeniable, especially every time Ji Shuhua stirred her passion. Her burning thirst made Ji Liqing feel incredibly uncomfortable. Unable to satisfy her desires, the image of Chen Hongyun, W, often appeared in her dreams. The next morning, after Ji Liqing finished washing up, she went downstairs for breakfast. She picked up a steamed bun and put it in her mouth, only to be hit with an overwhelming feeling of nausea. The water she had just drunk surged up, and she rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently, expelling all the acidic bile from her stomach. Ji Shuhua came downstairs behind her and, seeing her condition, hurried in to pat her back, asking with concern, "What's wrong?" Ji Liqing pressed her hand to her chest, feeling terribly uncomfortable. At that moment, her mother-in-law, Ji Lanfang, entered the yard. Seeing Ji Liqing's pale face, she hurried over and asked, "Liqing, what's wrong? I don't feel well in my stomach. I tried to eat a bun, but I ended up throwing up," Ji Liqing said weakly. "Want to throw up?" Ji Lanfang asked, looking at her with excitement. "Has your period come this month?" Ji Liqing shook her head. "Then it's probably a pregnancy," Ji Lanfang said, her face lighting up with joy. "A pregnancy?" Ji Shuhua asked, confused. "Silly boy, you're going to be a father," Ji Lanfang said excitedly. "What?" Ji Shuhua stood frozen, stunned. Could it be possible? How could she be pregnant after so many failed attempts? It must be true. Let's go to the hospital now to check. There's no mistake, Ji Lanfang said confidently. "Liqing, drink some porridge and eat an egg. We'll head to the hospital soon." Ji Liqing stood frozen, a sense of fear rising in her chest. Could she really be pregnant with Ji Shuhua's child? The few times they had been intimate had barely started before they ended. The thought of her last meeting with Chen Hongyun before their wedding flashed in her mind right when it was her ovulation period. Oh my god, could her worries have come true? What would she do now? Could she even keep the child? Ji Liqing trembled slightly, wishing it was all just a false alarm, that it wasn't real. At the hospital, the test results quickly came back, positive. Ji Liqing was really pregnant. Chapter 4 He accepts. Yu Liqing sat dejectedly on a chair in the hospital corridor. She had no strength left in her body. It was a feeling of despair, like a person sentenced to death. Everything was dark before her eyes. She could not imagine what the consequences would be if this child was born. "Liqing, let's go home." Ji Lanfang happily took Ji Liqing's hand and was about to leave. "Mom, I'm very tired and uncomfortable. Please wait a moment," Ji Liqing said weakly. "Okay, wait a minute. Are you afraid of giving birth?" "I tell you, don't be afraid, the baby will be born naturally when the time comes. Besides, medical technology is so advanced nowadays that you can have a cesarean section if you don't have a natural birth. There is no problem at all." Ji Lanfang saw Ji Liqing's painful and frightened expression and thought she was afraid of giving birth. When father-in-law Ji Guangxin came home from get off work, he was very happy to hear that Ji Liqing was pregnant. The Ji family was going to have a new baby, and he couldn't help but hum a tune. After Ji Shuhua returned home, he sat on the sofa listlessly. Ji Lanfang came out of the kitchen and said with a smile, "Son, you are really going to be a father." Ji Shuhua sighed deeply without even raising his head. Ji Lanfang felt very strange. Why was he not happy at all about becoming a father? Instead, he looked helpless and miserable. Li Qing was feeling uncomfortable because of his physical discomfort. What happened to him? "What's wrong with you, Shuhua?" Ji Lanfang asked. "It's nothing. I've just been busy lately and I'm very tired," said Ji Shuhua. "Silly son, can work make you so tiring? You're going to be a father, you should be happy," Ji Lanfang said. HMPH. Ji Shuhua made a little sound through his nose, stood up and went back to his room. "I wanted to lie down for a while, but I didn't expect Yu Liqing to be there too." The arrival of this child was somewhat strange. Ji Shuhua really didn't want to face Ji Liqing. He didn't stop for a moment, turned around and walked into another room. The dinner was particularly sumptuous. Ji Lanfang prepared many dishes that Ji Liqing liked and kept serving them to her. While eating, she also told them many things that they should pay attention to in the future, such as being careful in their lives, putting the child first, and not disturbing the fetus. Ji Liqing knew very well that her mother-in-law was hinting that the young couple should exercise self-control. Ji Shuhua couldn't bear to listen any longer, so he put down his bowl and chopsticks and said, "I'm full," turned around and walked out. Yu Liqing's heart skipped a beat and the rice grains she had put into her mouth fell out. Ji Lanfang and Ji Guangxin were also stunned. After dinner, Ji Liqing went out for a walk alone. After walking for a while, Ji Shuhua came back from somewhere, walked up to her quickly, and shouted, "Liqing, why did you come out alone? Ji Shuhua walked up to her and naturally put his arm around her waist, looking intimate. Ji Liqing was very confused. Why did Ji Shuhua suddenly change his mood? Ji Shuhua hugged Ji Liqing and asked, "How long did the doctor say you've been pregnant?" 42 days. Why are you so concerned all of a sudden? When is the due date? He asked again. Next March, she said. That's great, it's spring, the season when flowers bloom. Our child will be born when the earth comes back to life. Ji Shuhua seemed a little excited. Ji Liqing originally thought that Ji Shuhua would not let her give birth to the child. She even prepared for the worst case scenario, which was that Ji Shuhua would divorce her after knowing about this. Who would have thought that Ji Shuhua, who was very depressed during dinner just now, would suddenly become very happy and concerned about the child? Why is this? Chapter 5, Heart Shaking. The summer vacation is over, and Ji Liqing was officially transferred to Chunjiang Group Kindergarten. My mother-in-law Ji Lanfang is the principal of the kindergarten. Because she had just become pregnant, Ji Lanfang did not assign her too many tasks. She only had one literacy class every day, and was responsible for allocating some work in the rest of the time. Ji Liqing's classmate Zhu Lingling was in the same class with her. Zhu Lingling was the head teacher of the freshman class, responsible for arithmetic and art, and her tasks were much heavier than Ji Liqing's. Zhu Lingling was extremely unhappy about Ji Liqing's arrival. When they were in the normal school, Zhu Lingling and Ji Liqing were classmates, but they rarely interacted with each other. Because Zhu Lingling's family lived in the city and was well off, while Ji Liqing's family lived in the countryside and was poor, Zhu Lingling looked down on Ji Liqing at that time. Although Ji Liqing was very capable and served as a cadre in the student union, Zhu Lingling did not take it seriously. She knew that no matter what, Zhu Liqing could never compare to her. Zhu Liqing was destined to come from the countryside and return to the countryside in her life, and it would be difficult for her to escape from the countryside. But she was different. Her father was a deputy director. When it was time for graduation and assignment, most people were assigned to rural primary schools, but she was assigned to a group kindergarten. This is a job that many people envy. However, what Zhu Lingling did not expect was that Ji Liqing would be standing in the same classroom with her 3 years later, and she was the principal's daughter-in-law. Judging from all the arrangements, Ji Liqing would most likely replace Principal Ji in the future. Zhu Lingling is very reluctant to see such a situation possibly happening in the future. Ji Shuhua would come to the kindergarten after get off work every day and pick up Ji Liqing to go home together. Since she became pregnant, Ji Liqing's sexual needs have weakened, the nights are no longer so difficult, and her relationship with Ji Shuhua has become closer. Now the two of them are inseparable because they have a child that is about to be born. Ji Liqing had thought about this many times. What if the child was not Ji Shuhua's? But later she thought it through. Even if it really wasn't Ji Shuhua's, she would just wait until the day she found out before making any plans. After Zhu Liqing left, Chen Hongyun lay in the small dormitory for 3 days and 3 nights, without eating, drinking or sleeping, allowing the wrinkles on his face to grow wildly. Then, he carried his only suitcase, left Gujiazhuang Primary School where he had worked for 3 years, and returned home. His uncle Li Jinsai came and scolded him, and finally seconded him to the Huangma Teaching Auxiliary Station as an officer. When summer vacation came, Chen Hongyun didn't want to go home, so he stayed at the teaching assistant station. Every day he watched TV and played cards in the clothing store near the side door of the school, spending his days leisurely doing nothing. The clothing store owner has a daughter named Yu Lizhen, who is clever, tall and thin, with big eyes and a high nose bridge. Her skin is a little dark, but she is very young and can be considered a beauty. With nothing to do, Chen Hongyun took Yu Lizhen to the hill behind the school. There is a small forest here, surrounded by the villagers' fields, but the terrain is relatively high, and all of them are planted with some dryland crops. The corn stalks are already full, the peanuts have almost been harvested, and there are some sweet potatoes, beans and the like in the fields. Chen Hongyun picked up 2 big sweet potatoes from the ground, washed them in a ditch, handed one to Yu Lizhen, and started eating the other one. Chen Hongyun was a little thirsty, so he said to Yu Lizhen, "I want to go back and drink some water." "Do you want to go?" Chapter 6 When will you get married? Yu Lizhen let him do whatever he wanted and responded, "Okay, I'm thirsty too." The two returned to school quickly. It was holiday time and the campus was quiet. When he came to the room, Chen Hongyun poured a glass of water for Yu Lizhen, and then he took the cup and drank it up. Yu Lizhen took a sip, put down the cup, and looked around the room. It was her first time in Chen Hongyun's room. "It's quite simple," said Yu Lizhen. There was a bed, a table, a chair, and a washstand in the corner. There was not a single piece of extra furniture. Chen Hongyun walked up to Yu Lizhen, put his arms around her waist from behind, and stared at her. Yu Lizhen was a little scared and stammered, "What are you going to do?" "I want to eat you," Chen Hongyun said, and began to kiss her. It was the first time Yu Lizhen was kissed by a man and she was a little panicked. Yu Lizhen resisted at first, but soon gave in. She fell in love with Chen Hongyun from the day he walked into her clothing store. Now Chen Hongyun was so excited and passionate that she was at a loss for a moment, but at the same time she was extremely surprised. "It turns out that this man likes me so much, but he is just not good at expressing it." Ever since she had physical contact with Chen Hongyun, Yu Lizhen decided that Chen Hongyun was her man and she would not marry anyone else in this life. Chen Hongyun deeply regretted his momentary excitement. He did not like Yu Lizhen and had never thought of marrying Yu Lizhen in this life. But Yu Lizhen was different. After the first time, she often came to the school to find Chen Hongyun, and she was very proactive and always stayed in Chen Hongyun's room. Chen Hongyun was very conflicted. Although he didn't like her as a person, he really needed her body. He was also worried that if things went on for too long he wouldn't be able to get away from her. But reason did not prevail. Several times when he was alone with Yu Lizhen in the room, he could not help but make love with her. As the number of times increased, Chen Hongyun no longer thought about controlling himself. Yu Lizhen became more and more dependent on Chen Hongyun. From occasional meetings at the beginning to weekend meetings later, it has become a nightly routine now. Yu Lizhen's mother saw all of this. Time slipped away quietly, especially with the nourishment of a woman. Chen Hongyun felt that the days passed very quickly, and in a blink of an eye it was almost the end of the semester. Chen Hongyun had a very fruitful semester this semester. In addition to doing his job well and establishing a good relationship with Station Master Zhang, he also published 2 articles in the Longjiang newspaper. Chen Hongyun tasted the joy of success and his mind was full of finding news and writing articles. He had no idea that he was about to get into big trouble. The end-of-term work was completed, and Chen Hongyun was going to revise the work summary of the teaching assistant station and then hand it over to Zhang Heping. Yu Lizhen's mother walked in at this moment. She was wearing a pair of soft cloth shoes and walked without making any sound. She saw Chen Hongyun concentrating on his work and did not disturb him. After looking around the room, she stood behind Chen Hongyun and observed him carefully. Chen Hongyun was so focused that he didn't even notice anyone entering the room. After watching for a few minutes, Chen Hongyun still didn't notice her, so she approached Chen Hongyun and said casually, "Secretary Chen, are you busy?" Chen Hongyun was startled by the sudden sound. He turned his head sharply and looked at Yu Lizhen's mother with horror. His action also frightened Lizhen's mother. They both screamed, "Arr!" and leaned back in fear. After a while, Chen Hongyun stood up and said, "Boss lady, what's up?" Yu Lizhen's mother pulled over the only old rattan chair in the room and sat down without being invited. "When are you going to marry my daughter?" Chapter 7 Knowing Nothing. Chen Hongyun's brain short-circuited instantly. Why did he suddenly ask this? "You haven't thought about it, right?" She stared at him and asked, "Then think about it now." Her tone was firm. Chen Hongyun pursed his lips and said nothing, nor did he look at her, as if he didn't want to respond. "Secretary Chen, you don't just want to eat the meat and not pay for it, do you?" she said. Chen Hongyun glanced at her with disgust, thinking that this woman spoke very rudely. No wonder people said she was so capable. "I never thought that marriage is not a joke," said Chen Hongyun. "My daughter's innocence is not a joke. Now she is pregnant, what do you think we should do?" Yu Lizhen's mother revealed the truth. Her voice was not loud, but it was quite powerful. "What?" Chen Hongyun couldn't believe his ears. He thought it was impossible. What he did was measured. He didn't intend to make her pregnant. "Impossible," Chen Hongyun said firmly. "Chen Hongyun, how can you say such things? Don't you admit what you did?" Yu Lizhen's mother was instantly enraged and glared at Chen Hongyun fiercely. "No, I..." Chen Hongyun wanted to say that he had taken measures and each time was external to the body, but how could he say such a thing in front of Yu Lizhen's mother? "Nothing? You have to be responsible for what you did." Now everyone in Huangma Films knows that Liz Hen and you are together, and you must get married. She was still sitting on the chair, but she looked like she might explode at any time. Chen Hongyun's head was buzzing. He didn't know how to face this woman. He just wanted her to leave quickly. He closed his eyes and thought for a while, then said, "Let me think about it." "Okay, think about it carefully and clearly. But I tell you, this marriage must be done before the new year. Moreover, my daughter must marry in a grand manner. Secretary Chen, you are a person with a job and an organization, a person who is organized and disciplined. I believe you will not ruin your future." After saying that, she glared at Chen Hongyun, held her head high and walked out. Watching her leaving, Chen Hongyun was furious. "Damn it, you want to threaten me? I won't marry your daughter." But when he calmed down, he felt scared again. If Yu Lizhen was really pregnant, it would be a big trouble. If he didn't marry her, her mother would never let it go. If she made trouble every day at the teaching center, would he still have his job? He finally got this satisfactory job with the help of his uncle, and he didn't want to be punished. Besides, if this matter gets out, the impact will be so bad. Even if he is not expelled, he will be punished. Alas! Chen Hongyun grabbed his hair, feeling very upset. Damn it, how could he get involved with her? The work summary on the table was not finished yet, but Chen Hongyun forced himself to finish it. But when I looked at those words, the shadows of Yu Lizhen and her mother were always in my mind, and her mother's words kept ringing in my ears, so I couldn't continue writing. Chen Hongyun packed up his things and simply walked out. When they arrived at the door of the clothing store, Chen Hongyun waved to Yu Lizhen. Yu Lizhen hesitated for a moment and walked out. The two came to the grove behind. Yu Lizhen followed Chen Hongyun timidly. Chen Hongyun stopped, looked at Yu Lizhen, and asked with wide eyes, "Why didn't you tell me first?" "What?" Yu Lizhen was a little stunned and didn't know what he was saying. "About the pregnancy," Chen Hongyun said expressionlessly. "I don't know either," said Yu Lizhen. "Then your mother keeps saying that you are pregnant and wants me to marry you," Chen Hongyun yelled. He was angered by Yu Lizhen's words. "So that woman was trying to commit marriage fraud on me? My daughter was not pregnant, but she said she was. I didn't know how I got pregnant." Yu Lizhen didn't dare look at him and said with her head down, "I haven't had my period this month. My mother found out and asked me about it, but I didn't know I was pregnant." This is no wonder, as Yu Lizhen dropped out of school before graduating from middle school and knew almost nothing about these physiological knowledge. Every time Chen Hongyun asked her about the safe period, she had no idea and thought that as long as it was not her menstrual period, it was a safe period and she could have sex. Chapter 8. Something happened. Yu Lizhen listens to her mother in everything and has almost no opinion of her own. Chen Hongyun thought about it, changed his tone, and spoke to Yu Lizhen as gently as possible. "Lizhen, I'll take you to check it out in a few days," Chen Hongyun said, putting his arm around Yu Lizhen's shoulders. "Okay, I'll listen to you." Yu Lizhen was very happy that Chen Hongyun spoke to her like this. "You are still very young. Girls should not have children too early. It would be better to have children when you are more mature. Look, what will you do if you have a child when you are so young? You can't even take care of the child, right?" Chen Hongyun said. He wanted to try his best to guide Yu Lizhen not to give birth to the child. "I'm not young anymore, I'm already 20. Look, some of my classmates got married at 18, and their children are all gone," said Yu Lizhen. Chen Hongyun didn't expect her to say that. She was really talking about something that was irrelevant. "You are not suitable for having children at your current age. It would be better to wait a few years. You see, I don't have any money now and I just got a new job. Wait until I save more money and do a better job before getting married. Wouldn't our life be better in the future?" said Chen Hongyun. "It doesn't matter if you don't have money. I don't want your money. Besides, I won't affect you while you are working. My home is nearby and I won't cause you any trouble. My mother will help me take care of the child, so you can rest assured." Yu Lizhen looked at Chen Hongyun and said seriously. "What a stubborn person. How come he can't understand what I'm saying?" Chen Hongyun cursed in his heart. "I can't marry you now." Chen Hongyun impatiently let go of Yu Lizhen's hand and said angrily, "If you give birth to a child, I won't recognize it." Yu Lizhen looked at Chen Hongyun in surprise. She didn't expect him to say such a thing. Mom was right. Chen Hongyun just wanted to play with her and didn't he want to marry her, so the child must be born. He won't he dare to deny it when the time comes. Although Yu Lizhen is young and has not received much education, she is not stupid. She knows that she has nothing that can tie Chen Hongyun down. Now that she is pregnant, this is her biggest bargaining chip. But I like you and I want to marry you. If you don't acknowledge this child, I will raise it alone. After saying this, Yu Lizhen covered her face, turned around and left. It's useless. I can't even handle a woman. Chen Hongyun cursed himself in his heart. This is a big trouble. Returning to his room in a distracted state, Chen Hongyun forced himself to finish writing the work summary and handed it to Zhang Heping at noon. After completing this task, he decided to go see his uncle in the afternoon, otherwise how would he solve this big trouble? After work in the afternoon, Chen Hongyun came to Wangma Film Group. The wind was strong along the way, blowing Chen Hongyun's face cold. Maybe it was going to snow. Every winter, Chunjiang would snow a few times. When I arrived at Li Jinsai's office, he was looking through documents. Sit down. Tell me what's going on. Li Jinsai looked at Chen Hongyun's embarrassed expression and knew that this kid must have encountered trouble again. Uncle, there is something I don't know what to do. Chen Hongyun rubbed his hands vigorously and said timidly. Well, I was with a girl, and she is pregnant now. Chen Hongyun said intermittently and stammeringly. Li Jinsai put down the documents, sat up straight and looked at Chen Hongyun. Her mother wants me to marry her. Chen Hongyun said and then closed his mouth, not daring to look at Li Jinsai. This guy actually made the girl pregnant. He's really brave. Chapter 9 Trapped. Who is that girl? Li Jinsai asked. The daughter of the owner of the clothing store next to the school. Aren't you going to marry her? Li Jinsai asked. Li Jinsai had heard of this lady boss, and she was not a good person. Chen Hongyun wanted to say that he didn't want to, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. If you don't want to get married, you have to settle the matter. If you can't settle the matter, then you have to take responsibility for what you have done. Men should be brave enough to take responsibility for their actions. They should not ruin their future because of such things. Li Jinsai said, think about it yourself, which of the two paths is feasible? How Chen Hongyun hoped that his uncle would say righteously, what a thing, ignore her. But what Chen Hongyun heard was the following words. My uncle can't help you with this matter. You have to take responsibility for what you have done. You decide for yourself what to do. If this affects your work, you will be destroying your future. Li Jinsai said expressionlessly. I understand. Chen Hongyun fully understood what his uncle meant. He stood up and said goodbye. In fact, Li Jinsai was suppressing his anger and did not yell at Chen Hongyun. According to his previous personality, Chen Hongyun would have been scolded to death. This bastard, he just finished his work and is already thinking about women. He's really a dog that can't change its nature. But then he thought again, Chen Hongyun is young after all, who hasn't made mistakes when they were young? 3 years ago, this kid would rather give up his future and suffer in the remote Gujiazhuang primary school for the sake of Ji Yuliqing. What could you do about him? If Li Jinsai is willing to step forward to resolve today's situation, perhaps he can get rid of the entanglement. However, if you clean his ass every time he poops, he will do whatever he wants in the future. This kind of atmosphere cannot be allowed to continue. On their way back, the biting cold wind blew straight from the soles of his feet to his internal organs, giving Chen Hongyun goosebumps all over his body. He had never felt so cold before. Thinking that he was about to marry a woman like Yu Lizhen, his heart was filled with despair. Yu Lizhen is a semi-illiterate woman, not his ideal woman at all. Is he really going to live with this semi-illiterate woman for the rest of his life? That would be the biggest tragedy in life. I see other people playing with women one after another, easily getting them done, and never having any accidents. Why am I so unlucky? I either get dumped or I get hooked. It's so damn unlucky. At the school gate, Chen Hongyun saw Yu Lizhen again. Didn't she say she wasn't sure? Maybe this was just an illusion and she wasn't pregnant. So he kept a hope in his heart, maybe Yu Lizhen really wasn't pregnant, wouldn't all his worries be gone? As long as he stopped associating with her, then nothing would happen. Thinking of this, Chen Hongyun felt relieved and quickened his pace. A few days later, Chen Hongyun was preparing things in his room. Unexpectedly, Yu Lizhen's mother came again. Chen Hongyun hated her and was even a little scared. Chen Hongyun, let me tell you, I took Liz Hen to the hospital for a checkup, and she's 56 days pregnant. She said, Liz Hen has already shown signs of symptoms. She's been vomiting these past 2 days and can't eat. You're getting married soon, tentatively scheduled for the 26th day of the 12th lunar month. There's still a week left, so go back and prepare. I don't want any dowry from your Chen family, but nothing can be missing for the ceremony, just invite guests as you should, and do everything according to the rules. Her tone left no room for doubt. Chapter 10, Marriage and Children. You set the time too soon. How can I finish it in a week? Chen Hongyun said as he packed his things. He was really unwilling in his heart. I don't care about this. Go back today and ask your parents to come to my house tomorrow. It's like proposing marriage. Then we can discuss how to do it together. Go get the marriage certificate in the next 2 days. She said, don't worry, I won't let you suffer. I only have this one daughter. In the future, won't everything I have belong to you? I don't even care about your daughter, so why would I care about your things? Chen Hongyun said hatefully in his heart. Okay, I'll ask my parents to come over tomorrow. Chen Hongyun agreed. I'll wait for you at home. After saying that, Yulizhen's mother left. How could it be so unlucky? Chen Hongyun sat dejectedly on the edge of the bed. He really didn't want to face this marriage. But now, he can no longer think about it. So let it be. If it is a blessing, it will not be a disaster. If it is a disaster, it will be inevitable. Anyway, the woman he loves has married someone else. What does it matter who he marries? After returning home, Chen Hongyun told his parents about these things. Both parents are honest country folk. They have never done anything out of the ordinary in their lives. How could they tolerate their son doing something he dares to do but not take responsibility for it? In this way, Chen Hongyun's wedding was held grandly on the 26th day of the lunar year according to the customs of Chunjiang. Both parties hosted a banquet at their home for their respective relatives and friends. Chen Hongyun's colleagues from the teaching assistant station also came, and his uncle Li Jinsai naturally came as well. When Chen Hongyun toasted him, Li Jinsai had a complicated look in his eyes. He didn't say anything, but just patted Chen Hongyun on the shoulder. He seemed to see his own shadow in Chen Hongyun. I hope this kid is luckier than me, Li Jinsai thought. Half a year after being abandoned by Ji Yuliqing, Chen Hongyun ended his bachelor days and started a new journey in his life. During the Chinese New Year, Chen Hongyun followed his uncle Li Jinsai to visit Mr. Qin Zhihuai of the group newspaper and began to formally learn how to write news reports, laying the foundation for his future entry into the propaganda committee. This is also the bright future that his uncle Li Jinsai planned for him. Ji Yuliqing has officially started her maternity leave. When she was alone at home, she often took out the small shoes and clothes prepared for her child and fiddled with these cute little clothes. Yuliqing was full of anticipation for the arrival of the child. The little rascal was not well behaved in the belly and was always kicking and struggling, often waking Yuliqing up with his kicks at night. Sometimes Yuliqing would pat the bulging part of her belly, thinking that it must be the little kid's hands, beating it non-stop like a drum. Yuliqing believed that this little guy was a son, and most of the clothes she bought were in boy-friendly colors. Yuliqing liked her son, and she thought that he was tough and easy to raise, and that he could be trained to do great things in the future. Whenever she thought of this, Yuliqing's heart was filled with sweetness. It was the feeling of becoming a mother soon. When she is alone, Ji Yuliqing will also think of Chen Hongyun. Ji Yuliqing was not surprised to hear that Chen Hongyun had left Gujiazhuang Primary School. Chen Hongyun had followed her to Gujiazhuang, and now that she was gone, he naturally had no reason to stay. But she didn't expect Chen Hongyun to leave so quickly, almost at the same time as her. I wonder how he is doing now? Is he married? I hope he is doing better than me. After sitting for a long time, Yuliqing felt her waist aching and she was very sleepy, so she lay down on the bed and fell asleep in a short while. In the middle of the night, she suddenly felt pain in her stomach and some red discharge, and she thought she was about to give birth. Ji Shuhua probably heard the noise and ran over immediately. What's wrong, Liqing, are you about to give birth? Ji Shuhua asked. Yes, I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts. Go call mom. Ji Shuhua looked at Ji Liqing and hurried downstairs, shouting as she walked, Mom, Mom, Liqing is about to give birth. The family hurriedly rushed Yuliqing to the hospital. Lying on the delivery bed, Yu Liqing felt like she was about to die. The intense, heart-wrenching pain made her unable to control herself. She gritted her teeth, held the bedside railing with both hands, and screamed in pain. After tossing and turning for half the night, Yu Liqing finally gave birth to a big fat boy. Chapter 11. His name is Ji Yuxian. Ji Lanfang and his wife were very excited. They held their child tightly and couldn't let go, and couldn't stop looking at him. Ji Yushuhua was very calm, he was not excited at all. He had been looking forward to the arrival of the child, but now he did not feel happy at all. When he learned that Li Qing was pregnant that day, he looked up relevant information and found that he could also make his wife pregnant in his situation, so he believed at that time that the child was his. The child was pushed out, his tiny body wrapped in swaddling clothes, with only his head exposed. He had black hair, rosy cheeks, a high and big nose, a big mouth, single eyelids, and a very cute little look. The little guy's mouth was pouting as if he was looking for something to eat. Wow, my baby. Old Jiyu, look how cute he is. He looks exactly like Shuhua when he was a child. Ji Lanfang lowered her head and looked at him carefully, her face full of love. Yes, she's good looking, just like Shuhua. Jiyu Guangxin said excitedly. Jiyu Shuhua looked at the little person in the stroller and it didn't look like him at all. He couldn't believe he looked like this when he was a kid. How could his nose and mouth be that big? This was a dominant trait, so it was obviously not his. This child is probably not his. Ji Yushuhua stared at the little guy with an extremely cold expression on his face. The child was pushed back to the delivery room and placed next to Ji Yuliqing. Yu Liqing lay powerless on the delivery bed, her body soaked with sweat. The intense, heart-wrenching pain had just passed, and Ji Yuliqing's mind was blank. Now the little guy who almost tortured her to death was back in front of her. She tilted her head and looked at the little head in the crib, which was moving left and right, and its mouth seemed to be searching for something, as if looking for food. What a greedy little boy, he wants to eat as soon as he gets to the ground. Looking at this little life, Ji Yuliqing gradually felt a pity for him. This is her son, the man of the future. As she looked at him, Yu Liqing couldn't help but feel a little scared. This child looked so much like Chen Hongyun. That huge nose and that big mouth, he is a replica of Chen Hongyun. How would the Ji family react when they saw this child? Especially Ji Shuhua, could he believe that this was his child? Oh my god, please don't let this cause any trouble. Ji Yuliqing trembled a little. The arrival of the child brought new joy and vitality to the Ji family courtyard. The more Ji Lanfang looked at this precious baby, the more she liked him. Apart from work, Ji Lanfang spends all her energy and time on this little baby. The Ji family named the child Ji Yuxian, nicknamed Anan, which means growing up safely and happily. Ji Lanfang treated her precious grandson so well that she held him in her mouth for fear that he would melt, and she held him in her hands for fear that he would fall to the ground. Her love for him was so intense that even Yu Liqing could not bear it. Ji Yushuhua, however, disliked Ji Yuxian more and more. She had big eyes, while Ji Yuxian had small eyes. How could they not look alike? But Mother Ji Lanfang said, "This looks like Liqing." Look, Liqing's eyes are not big either. She is a combination of her parents, so of course she looks like two different people. But what about this big mouth? Ji Yushuhua said, "Is my mouth really that big?" But my mother said, "Look, your father has a big mouth, it is inherited from the previous generation, most of his grandchildren look like their grandfather." Anyway, whenever Ji Yushuhua felt something was wrong, Ji Lanfang could always find a reason. In her eyes, this grandson was a treasure, and he was perfect in every way. Every time Ji Yushuhua heard her mother say this, she felt very unhappy. Chapter 12. Busy work. Since visiting teacher Qin Jihuai, Chen Hongyun has had a new task. Qin Jihuai assigned him homework, asking him to pay attention to the front page headlines of the group newspaper and Longjiang newspaper, especially the group newspaper's reports on various groups, and to follow Chen Fujian, the leader of the reporting group of the Chunjiang Group's propaganda committee, to write news. After school started, Chen Fujian took Chen Hongyun to interview once. When Chen Hongyun went to work on Monday, he opened the newspaper of that day and his eyes suddenly lit up. The three words, Chen Hongyun, were actually under the front page headline of the group newspaper. Wow, the article he co-wrote with Chen Fujian made the headlines of the group newspaper. Chen Hongyun couldn't help but be delighted. He wanted to tell his uncle Li Jinsai the good news as soon as possible, but then he thought that his uncle read the newspaper every day and must have seen it a long time ago. In fact, Li Jinsai is very troubled now, not only because of work troubles, but also because of the troubles brought by his illiterate wife Cai Juyin. After Cai Juyin came to live in Huangma for a few weeks, she seemed to like Huangma. She went back to the city to greet the children on weekends and came back on time on Monday morning. This continued for several weeks. At first, Li Jinsai thought this woman was just testing the waters, but he didn't expect that she really wanted to live here permanently, which made Li Jinsai very upset. Work is already stressful enough, and he has to face this phase when he returns home at night. Li Jinsai has tried several times to find an excuse to go down to the village to investigate, but the village does not provide accommodation, so he has to go back to the film group to stay at night. There is really nowhere to hide. Li Jinsai knew that Cai Juyin was worried about him. However, over the years, Li Jinsai has always believed in the precept that a rabbit does not eat grass near its burrow. Although there are many young and beautiful girls around him, and some of them will take the initiative to throw themselves into his arms and send him flirtatious glances, Li Jinsai can grasp one thing: not having too much private contact with them and never crossing the line. Li Jinsai did this not because he was indifferent to worldly affairs and did not like beautiful girls. In fact, deep down in his heart, he envied those people who had red flags flying outside and colorful flags fluttering at home. However, he could not do it. He was very afraid of the tigress at home. Once she showed her power, it would be very scary. Li Jinsai could not imagine such a scene. What's more, now is the rising period of his career. Li Jinsai doesn't want to ruin his future because of this, so he always reminds himself to be restrained in his emotions. But God always loves to play jokes. When Li Jinsai tried hard to restrain himself, the seductive Cupid's sword still shot at him. Li Jinsai is in charge of the family planning work at Masui Station, which is the largest administrative village in Huangma area, with more than 1,000 households and more than 5,000 people, all with the surname Wan. It is a key village for family planning. Because the family planning work was not done well, the station secretary has changed several times. When Li Jinsai arrived at Masui Station, Shuji and the director received him. The director was older, and Shuji was a newly appointed young woman in her early 30s, very pretty, wearing a well-cut dress that perfectly outlined her curves and had the charm of a mature woman. Li Jinsai is not familiar with this new book. Li Jinsai shook hands with the elderly village director. The woman hurried forward, shook Li Jinsai's hand enthusiastically, and said, "Hello Li Shuji, I'm Liu Chuanxiu. I didn't do my job well and caused trouble for you, Li Shuji. Please criticize me." Li Jinsai held Liu Chuanxiu's hands and felt that they were soft. They didn't look like the hands of a country woman, but more like the hands of a little girl. Li Jinsai raised his head and looked at Liu Chuanxiu carefully. Unexpectedly, he met Liu Chuanxiu's watery eyes. Liu Chuanxiu's eyes were so soul-stirring. Li Jinsai quickly looked away, released her hand, and said, "Let's do the next work together and try to conquer this fortress." "Follow Li Shuji's instructions in everything," said Liu Chuanxiu. "Wan Shuji, now that I'm in your territory, I have to listen to you." Li Jinsai looked at Liu Chuanxiu and said, "Let me introduce the details first. Then I will report the situation of these families to Li Shuji." Liu Chuanxiu said, took out a notebook and began to report. Liu Chuanxiu has a very nice voice, a mezzo-soprano with a very textured voice. Accustomed to the long-winded reports from rural uncles and aunts, Li Jinsai did not expect to hear such a clear and eloquent report at Masui Station. If someone else had reported this matter, Li Jinsai would have felt very impatient, but after listening to Liu Chuanxiu's report, he did not feel that way at all. Instead, he was eager to listen on, as if that voice had some kind of magic. Liu Chuanxiu reported for more than half an hour, and Li Jinsai understood that the burden on him was particularly heavy. "We visited 2 families with more than 1 child and allowed and did a lot of work to persuade them. We were all exhausted. In the evening, the station hosted a banquet for Li Jinsai in the village canteen. The table was filled with local country dishes, which contained almost all the delicious food in the village. The chickens, ducks and fish are all domestically raised and taste very delicious. The vegetables are also freshly picked from the fields and are refreshing. Li Jinsai doesn't drink, but today he met Liu Chuanxiu, a woman who can drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk." Chapter 13, Tickling the Palm. As soon as he sat down at the table, Liu Chuanxiu raised his glass and said, "Li Shuji, I didn't do my job well and caused you trouble. I'll drink a glass of wine as a punishment. After that, he drank the glass of wine. Li Jinsai was about to speak when Liu Chuanxiu filled his second glass, clinked glasses with Li Jinsai and said, Li Shuji, you are the Shuji I admire the most. Today you were supposed to do family planning work, but you thought of solving other people's children's schooling problems first. This move of yours is really brilliant. I toast you a glass. After that, she raised her head and drank it again. Li Jinsai had no choice but to drink their wine in the glass. Then the village director and several others took turns to toast Li Jinsai, and he was a little overwhelmed. Li Jinsai's alcohol tolerance is limited. He usually gets tipsy after drinking half a catty of wine. He felt bad if he didn't drink today, as it would be too arrogant. But if he drank, he was afraid of making a fool of himself. Just when he was in a dilemma, Liu Chuanxiu came over and said, Li Shuji is very tired today. How about this, I will drink this glass of wine for Li Shuji. The accountant opened his eyes wide and asked, why do you drink for Li Shuji? Liu Chuanxiu said, I just saw that Li Shuji couldn't drink anymore, so I drank a glass for him. No, I can't accept this statement, said the accountant with a red face. If you insist on this explanation, then I will say that I drank it on behalf of Brother Wang. Today I recognize Li Shuji as my elder brother, so I will drink this glass of wine on behalf of my elder brother first, okay. Liu Chuanxiu looked at Li Jinsai with her big watery eyes. Li Jinsai smiled but didn't say anything. He thought, this woman is really good at dealing with things. When did she recognize me as her big brother? No, since you recognize him as your elder brother, you have to drink more. Let's drink the recognition wine first, said the accountant, and others echoed him. Okay, then I will accept your gift first, but I drink wine and my brother drinks tea instead of wine. Liu Chuanxiu poured herself a full glass and poured Li Jinsai a glass of boiled water. That won't do. If you want to recognize each other as big brothers, you have to drink. You can't have one drink and the other water. That would be hypocritical, said the accountant with a smile. Okay, let's drink. Li Jinsai didn't expect Liu Chuanxiu to do this, but he didn't want to offend her, so he replaced the water in his glass with wine. Liu Chuanxiu was very excited to see Li Jinsai being so straightforward. She raised her glass and said, Li Shuji, no, Brother Wang, from today on, I will call you Brother Wang. I am so happy that you agree to recognize me as your sister. I am the eldest in the family and have always wanted to have a brother. Today I finally fulfilled my wish. Thank you, brother, for your help. After that, she drank the wine in the glass. Li Jinsai was looking at the full glass of wine and was in a dilemma. Liu Chuanxiu said sympathetically, brother, you drink half and I'll drink the rest. Li Jinsai took a sip, and Liu Chuanxiu took the glass from Li Jinsai and drank it all up neatly. Good alcohol tolerance. Li Jinsai looked at Liu Chuanxiu, whose face was a little red, and his heart was a little shaken. A woman who drinks is more beautiful, with her flushed cheeks, slightly drunk and blurred eyes, especially the way Liu Chuanxiu looked at Li Jinsai, she was simply full of charm. Li Jinsai didn't dare to look at Liu Chuanxiu for too long, fearing that he would lose his composure, so he quickly sat down and ate. Liu Chuanxiu drank the wine that the accountant offered to Li Jinsai and looked even more drunk. Seeing that it was getting late, Li Jinsai said, let's stop here today. I should go back too. Everyone said it was good, but Liu Chuanxiu felt a little unsatisfied. Everyone gathered around to see Li Jinsai off. Liu Chuanxiu followed closely behind Li Jinsai. Just when Li Jinsai turned around to get in the car, Liu Chuanxiu held Li Jinsai's hand and hooked his palm with her index finger, which made Li Jinsai feel itchy. After returning to his residence, Li Jinsai couldn't calm down for a long time, and his mind was full of Liu Chuanxiu's shadow. At night, when going to bed, Cai Juyin took the initiative to do homework with Li Jinsai. Li Jinsai had no mood or desire at all. He turned his back to Cai Juyin and said, I'm tired. I have to go to the countryside tomorrow. Let's go to sleep. Cai Juyin looked at Li Jinsai's back and was so angry that she was panting. She wanted to explode but held it back and crawled into the bed with her back to Li Jinsai. Chapter 14 Miss. Summer came unknowingly, and the cicadas began to sing again in the big locust tree outside the window. Chen Hongyun looked at the big tree that cast thick shade on the sun, twisted the pen in his hand, wanted to write something, but didn't know where to start. He simply threw the pen away and started watching TV. I kept choosing channels, but I didn't find any good programs. It was so boring. Yu Lizhen heard the noise in the bedroom and walked in from outside. Chen Hongyun looked up at Yu Lizhen and suddenly felt that her belly was a little strangely big. Could it be twins? Chen Hongyun thought. Yu Lizhen looked at Chen Hongyun, who was lost in thought, and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about how to write the manuscript." Chen Hongyun fell on his back on the bed, covering his head with his hands. At this moment, the shadow of Ji Yuliqing began to appear in Chen Hongyun's mind again. It has been a year since he left Gujiaswan. Chen Hongyun tried his best not to think about Ji Yuliqing, but that shadow would often jump into Chen Hongyun's mind. For example, now, with his eyes closed, Chen Hongyun's mind is full of Ji Yuliqing's appearance. Ji Yuliqing was walking in the normal university campus. Her hair was swinging back and forth. Ji Yuliqing was strolling by the Chunjiang River. Her expression was shy and lovely. Ji Yuliqing was teaching in Gujiaswan Primary School. Her back was so beautiful as she walked to the classroom. Ji Yuliqing was making love with me in the dormitory. Her expression was shy and charming. How long has it been since I felt that way? There was no love between me and Yu Lizhen, and we got married because she was pregnant. Chen Hongyun longed for the feeling he once had, but he could never find it in Yu Lizhen. He turned over and lay on the bed, holding the pillow with both hands, and said to Yu Lizhen, "You go out, I want to sleep for a while, close the door." Yu Lizhen looked at Chen Hongyun and wanted to ask him why he was sleeping in the broad daylight. But she swallowed the words back because every time she said something Chen Hongyun didn't like, he would yell at her, so she decided not to say anything. Yu Lizhen closed the door reluctantly, went downstairs with difficulty with her big belly, and walked towards her mother's shop. Ji Yuliqing's son is almost 5 months old. He is chubby and very adorable. You no longer have to get up at night to feed your baby and can sleep until dawn. Ji Lanfang whispered to Ji Yuliqing, "You can move back to the 3rd floor to sleep. Zian will sleep with me at night. You can come down early to feed him when the sun rises." Ji Yuliqing understood what Ji Lanfang meant. Since giving birth, Ji Yushuhua has been sleeping alone on the 3rd floor, and Ji Yuliqing has been living in the same room with her mother-in-law to take care of Zian. Ji Lanfang asked Yuliqing to go back to the 3rd floor to sleep, so that the couple could sleep in the same room. Yuliqing didn't dare to disobey, and she didn't dare to let Ji Lanfang find out that they had been separated for a long time, so she had to nod and agree. In the evening, Ji Yushuhua went out for a walk after dinner as usual. Ji Lanfang and Ji Yu Guangxin also went out with Zian in their arms. Ji Yuliqing cleaned up the dishes and returned to the 3rd floor. No one had slept in the room for a long time and there was a bad smell. Yuliqing took off all the bedding, replaced it with a clean mattress, and cleaned the room thoroughly, sweating profusely. After cleaning up, Yuliqing took her pajamas to the bathroom to take a shower. She opened her eyes and saw the bathroom full of mist. The shadow in the mirror was also so blurry. This could only be a dream. Is this the way she is going to spend her whole life in such depression? Ji Yuliqing couldn't help but feel sad. How pitiful a woman is without the nourishment of love, how sad a woman is without the nourishment of a man. Tears flowed down her cheeks and into her mouth, so bitter. Perhaps this was God's punishment for her, and she was destined to swallow this bitter fruit in silence. When Ji Yuliqing was about to put on her clothes, the bathroom door suddenly opened and Ji Yushuhua was standing at the door. Chapter 15. You're a waste. Ji Yuliqing instinctively covered her body with clothes. Ji Yushuhua kept pushing the door open and looked at her in astonishment. He never expected that Yuliqing would take a bath in the bathroom on the 3rd floor. Over the past few months, he has gotten used to living alone on the 3rd floor, and no one except him would appear in this bathroom. For a few seconds, Ji Yushuhua's mind went blank. He couldn't react and couldn't figure out what was going on. After a moment, Ji Yushuhua quickly withdrew the foot that had stepped in and closed the door. When Ji Yushuhua closed the door and was about to leave, Ji Yuliqing stopped him. "Shuhua." Ji Yuliqing called out. Ji Yushuhua turned his back to the bathroom. "I'm done, you can continue." "Oh." Ji Yushuhua let go of the door handle and walked towards his room. Ji Yuliqing put on her clothes and came to Ji Yushuhua's door. "Shuhua, you haven't changed your bed sheets for a long time. It's time to wash them." Yuliqing said. "Okay." Ji Yushuhua responded. "I have changed into clean ones. You can come and sleep over tonight." Ji Yuliqing said, but Ji Shuhua kept his head down. He couldn't believe his ears. He looked up and saw the tenderness in Ji Liqing's eyes that he had never seen before. Ji Liqing's hair was still wet, and her body exuded the fragrance of just getting out of the bath. Ji Shuhua's desire was ignited in an instant, and he nodded. Ji Liqing turned around and went back to her room. She was thinking about why she was so surprised when Ji Shuhua appeared just now, and why she even covered her body with clothes. Who is that person? It's your husband. Why do these two people who should be the closest and most in love feel so strange? We must change this situation. After so long, maybe Shuhua has improved in that aspect. Although there is no love, but the two of them have been together for a long time, there should be family affection. Then let the two of them become family. How many couples in life don't live like this? Ji Shuhua seemed to have been washing for a long time. Ji Liqing blew her hair dry and waited for a long time before she heard the sound of the bathroom door opening. Ji Shuhua walked in quietly. He was a little hesitant, not knowing where to sit. Ji Liqing smiled and extended her hand to Ji Shuhua. Ji Shuhua paused for a moment, holding Ji Liqing's hand, and walked to the bedside. Ji Liqing took the initiative to help Ji Shuhua take off his clothes. She wanted to arouse Ji Shuhua, make him feel like a man, and satisfy her needs. Shuhua, you can do it. Ji Liqing whispered in Ji Shuhua's ear. I'm sorry, I. Ji Shuhua said dejectedly. You? Ji Liqing closed her eyes in pain. At this moment, she really wanted to die. The feeling she had just found, the beauty that had just floated to the clouds, disappeared in an instant. She felt like she had fallen from the top of a mountain with infinite scenery into a deep abyss. The despair and anger spread throughout her body. She wanted to lose her temper, wanted to curse loudly, wanted to scream hysterically, "You useless piece of shit!" But she held back, she suppressed her unhappiness and dissatisfaction, patted Ji Shuhua, who was still lying on her, and said, "It's okay, maybe you are too excited. Take a break, maybe you can do it later." Ji Shuhua slid down Ji Liqing's body. He couldn't believe that this was what Ji Liqing said. How come this woman became so considerate today? After a long time, Ji Liqing seemed to be talking to herself, or to Ji Shuhua. How about we go to the hospital? What are you looking at? Can't I let everyone in Chunjiang know about me, Ji Shuhua? Ji Shuhua said unhappily. We don't have to go to Chunjiang to see it. We can go to Changcheng or Shanghai to see it, so no one will know about it. I have read some books on this subject. Some people have lived a normal life after proper treatment, said Ji Liqing. Oh. Ji Shuhua let out a long sigh and turned sideways on the bed. How could he not want to see it? Many times, he mustered up the courage to go to the hospital for consultation, but as soon as he reached the hospital entrance, his legs felt like they were filled with lead, and there seemed to be countless hands behind him pulling him back, and he could never cross that threshold. Chapter 16. Being a father. The summer vacation is about to end, and these days are Yulijin's due date. Chen Hongyun lies lazily on the bed, waiting for the baby to be born. But looking at Yulijin's appearance, it seemed that she had no signs of giving birth. She ran to her mother's clothing store every day with her big belly, and often stayed there for half a day. After breakfast, Yulizhen went to her mother's clothing store as usual. Just as she was about to get up, Chen Hongyun said, "Don't go today. Stay at home. It's not good to walk around the store with such a big belly all day." Yulizhen sat there and didn't dare to move. Since Chen Hongyun said not to go, then she couldn't go. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if this man was unhappy. Yulizhen, half lying back in her chair, said, "Okay, but this is boring, find something to do." "What to do?" Chen Hongyun said, "Why don't we listen to music and play cards?" "Okay." Yulizhen was very happy that Chen Hongyun had the interest to accompany her. The two of them played cards on the bed while listening to music. When Yulizhen lost, Chen Hongyun scratched her nose. When Chen Hongyun lost, Yulizhen asked him to crawl around the room. Chen Hongyun was very well behaved this time, and every time he lost he would crawl around the room obediently. Seeing Chen Hongyun crawling on the ground with his butt sticking up and using his hands and feet, Yulizhen couldn't help laughing. She had never seen Chen Hongyun so obedient. He crawled when she asked him to. This man also had such a gentle and obedient side. Yulizhen laughed so hard that her stomach hurt. She touched her stomach and shook her hands, saying, "No more, no more. My stomach hurts from laughing. I don't want to play anymore. Stomachache." Chen Hongyun asked with eyes wide open, "You mean your stomachache?" "Yeah, my stomach hurts a little." "Hurry, lie down. Let's go to the hospital right away." Chen Hongyun helped Yu Lizhen lie down, then ran to the store like the wind to call Yu Lizhen's mother. After arriving at the hospital and struggling for most of the night, the baby was finally born. The loud cry pierced the lonely and dark night sky. The doctor came out holding the baby and said, "Congratulations, you've given birth to a son, weighing 8.32 kgs. Wow." Chen Hongyun jumped up excitedly. "He really is a big fat son, more than 8 kilograms, so amazing. My son is different." Chen Hongyun excitedly picked up the child. The little guy's eyes were wide open, with black hair, a big nose and a big mouth. He was an exact replica of him. Chen Hongyun was so happy and proud. This was the happiest and most exciting day since he and Yu Lizhen got married. No, it should be said that this year since Ji Yuliqing left him. His son was born in the dark night before dawn, so Chen Hongyun named him Chen Tianliang, which sounds loud and nice. 25-year-old Chen Hongyun completed the first upgrade of his life on this night and became a father. Chapter 17, No Rule. School has started, and Yu Liqing has returned to work after her maternity leave. The night before school started, Ji Lanfang told Ji Yuliqing that starting from this semester, she would arrange for Ji Yuliqing to be the deputy director. Although she was called the deputy director, she actually exercised the power of the director. "Why do I say that?" Ji Lanfang said. "First, it is to train you so that you can work boldly by my side. Second, Xian is so old and needs someone to take care of him. You just concentrate on your work and I will take care of Xian. Next year, I plan to formally apply for retirement and let you take over." So, Ji Yuliqing started her work as the deputy director of Chunjiang Group S kindergarten. Ji Yuliqing is very capable and her work is progressing very smoothly. She encouraged Ji Yu Shuhur to go to a large hospital in Changcheng. Ji Yu Shuhur was very reluctant and always put it off. Later, taking advantage of an opportunity to go to Changcheng for study, Ji Yuliqing urged him to go. He finally mustered up the courage to see a male doctor, and then returned home carrying a large bag of medicine. In order to prevent his mother from finding out that he was taking medicine, Ji Yu Shuhua locked all the medicines in a box. Every night, he would wrap the medicine he would take the next day in paper and put it in his pocket. He did not dare to take them at home and would wait until after work to take them. After eating this for about a month, he thought there should be some effect. It happened to be the weekend that day, and Ji Yu Shuhua plucked up his courage and wanted to try his skills, so he took the initiative to get intimate with Ji Yuliqing. Ji Yuliqing cooperated very well, and the two were about to get into the state, but he tasted the taste of failure again. As soon as he went up, he drooped on Ji Yuliqing. This hit Ji Yu Shuhua hard. Didn't he say that he could be cured? Why was he still like this after the treatment? Is this disease really incurable? Ji Yu Shuhua was in great pain. With a strong sense of guilt and frustration, he returned to his own room and tore up and crushed the pile of medicines that he had not finished taking. He stomped on them again and again. Looking at the medicine powder that was stuck to the floor by his feet, Ji Yu Shuhua fell dejectedly on the bed. At this moment, he thought of death again. Is there anything that can make a man more sad and hurt his self-esteem than sexual impotence? In a daze, Ji Yu Shuhua felt someone calling him. He opened his eyes and found that it was his mother's voice. His mother seemed to be walking upstairs. "No, I can't let my mother find out that I'm sleeping in another room." Ji Yu Shuhua jumped out of bed and quickly put on his clothes. He looked at the crushed medicine on the floor and didn't know what to do. He had no choice but to quickly close the door. Just as he reached the stairs, Ji Lanfang came up. "Why did you get up just now, son? Aren't you going to work?" Ji Lanfang said. "I overslept." Ji Yu Shuhua said, touching his head. "Didn't Li Qing call you?" Ji Lanfang said. "Maybe he called me, but I didn't hear it," said Ji Yu Shuhua. "Shuhua, what's wrong with your eyes? They look very swollen." Ji Lanfang said worriedly, "Didn't you sleep well last night?" "Maybe I slept too late last night." Ji Yu Shuhua stammered. "Okay, go downstairs and eat, and hurry to work. Don't be late. It's almost 8 o'clock now." Ji Lanfang urged, turning around and walking downstairs. Seeing Shu Hua's swollen eyes, she was very worried. Looking at his mother's back as she walked down the stairs, Jiu Shuhua felt an indescribable emotion in his heart. If Mom knew he was not a real man, how disappointed and sad she would be. And that Jiu Xian, most likely he wasn't his own child. But he didn't have the courage to verify it. Jiu Shuhua felt his eyes become moist and tears began to fall uncontrollably. Chapter 18 is coming. After Jiu Liqing had arranged all the tasks, she was sitting in the office and was about to take a break when the guard came up with a message that several leaders were coming downstairs. Jiu Liqing hurried downstairs to greet him. When I walked to the first floor, I saw 2 cars parked at the door. Director Jiu, hello. Director Shu smiled. This is Director Yang from the Cultural Committee, and this is the head of the Herpu district, your parents' leader Zhang Haoyai. The Zhang Haoyai that Director Shu mentioned was the secretary of Herpu district. Jiu Liqing had heard of this person, but had never seen him. I didn't expect him to be so young, probably in his early 30s. He was so young and could be a secretary. He must have a lot of power. Jiu Liqing shook hands with them one by one. When Zhang Haoyai shook hands with Jiu Liqing, he deliberately squeezed his hand harder and said with a smile, Director Jiu, I've heard of your name for a long time. My child will also be enrolled in the kindergarten next year. I'd like to make an appointment with you first. Don't tell me there's no place when the time comes. Zhang Shuji is really humorous. It is an honor for our kindergarten that you can come to our kindergarten. Leaders, please go upstairs. Zhang Haoyai's eyes never left Jiu Liqing, but Jiu Liqing was busy and didn't notice. When she sat down, she accidentally met Zhang Haoyai's gaze again. Jiu Liqing was so nervous that she quickly looked away. Zhang Haoyai looked at Jiu Liqing and said, Today we have come to ask Director Jiu for help with a very difficult task. Only Director Jiu can help us with this task, and only Director Jiu can help well. Listening to Zhang Haoyai keeping her in suspense, Jiu Liqing became more and more unsure, wondering what these people were here for. Don't worry, Director Jiu. This is not a bad thing. It must be a good thing. Zhang Haoyai said, You have so many talented people here. The children are all little elves, and the teachers are all good at singing and dancing. So we discussed and decided to invite you here. At this point, Zhang Haoyai stopped again with a smile on his face. Zhang Shuji, stop teasing our Director Jiu. Director Yang said with a smile, It's like this. The Longjian Cultural Committee asked us to organize a high-end art performance to celebrate the return. We have selected several units to prepare. Director Jiu will be responsible for 5 programs. The specific arrangements will be discussed in detail by Teacher Liu and your supervisor later. After hearing what Director Yang said, Jiu Liqing felt relieved. We will do our best to complete such an important and glorious task, and we also ask all leaders to come and provide guidance from time to time, said Jiu Liqing. After arranging their work, when it was time for dinner, she invited all the leaders to have dinner together. We must eat Director Gu's meal. Zhang Haoyai said with a smile, but today you are treating, I will pay the bill, because I am the landlord. Zhang Haoyai drove in front to lead the way, while Jiu Liqing and Director Yang sat in Zhang Haoyai's car. Jiu Liqing thought Zhang Haoyai was going to take everyone to Chunjiang Hotel, but unexpectedly they came to Brothers Restaurant. Zhang Haoyai used his influence in Herpu to run this restaurant for his brother. The reception of Herpu Group is basically here. No wonder Zhang Haoyai said he would pay the bill today. We came to the Phoenix Hall. The private room was large, equipped with karaoke equipment, and well decorated. Today there are 3 beauties and 3 handsome guys. The combination of men and women will whet your appetite. Teacher Liu will sit next to Director Yang, and Teacher Gui will sit next to Director Shu. After Zhang Haoyai finished speaking, he took the water cup and walked to Jiu Liqing's side. Gui Maimai was pulled by him to the seat next to Director Shu. Teacher Liu was very conscious and sat next to Director Yang. This position is mine. Zhang Haoyai sat down next to Jiu Liqing. Director Jiu, you have no objection to being the woman next to me, right? Jiu Liqing smiled but said nothing. Dear leaders and ladies, let's have a toast together. May your work be happy and your life be sweet. Zhang Haoyai stood up and clinked glasses with everyone. Jiu Liqing took a small sip and saw that the other 2 beauties only tasted it briefly. Hey, stop. Zhang Haoyai shouted, Are you 3 beauties so disrespectful? Teacher Liu and Teacher Gui were embarrassed by what he said, but they really couldn't drink it. They couldn't sit or stand with the cup in their hands. Gui Mai Mai looked at Ji Yuliching with an expression that looked like she was asking for help. Zhang Shuji, how about this? We ladies should drink beverages instead. We really can't drink this wine. Ji Yuliching wanted to help them out. Director Ji Yu, this won't do. I, Zhang, offer you the first glass of wine, and you refuse. Isn't that too disrespectful to me? Zhang Haoyi said with a malicious smile, whether you should drink this glass of wine or not, it's up to you to decide. Chapter 19, Wedding Wine. After Zhang Haoyi said this, Ji Yuliching felt even more embarrassed. Ji Yuliching didn't dare to drink too much, because Xian was still having a fever at home, and she had to take care of the children when she got home at night. But she really had to drink, but if she drank the first glass of wine, then she would have to drink the rest. No, I have to change the cup. Yuliking thought. Zhang Shuji, we must drink your wine. But we have to find a way to drink it. You see, it's such a big cup, I'm afraid the girls will fall down after drinking it, and then the show afterwards will not be good. Let's change the cup to one for drinking white wine, this one is for drinking beer. Yuliking said with a smile. I think it's okay, let's change the cup. Director Shu said with a smile. Zhang Shuji has always been kind and gentle to women, that's fine. Director Yang also said. Okay, the leader has spoken, and the woman next to me has made the decision again. I, Zhang, have no choice but to agree. Zhang Haoyi continued to joke, okay, let's change to something smaller. Lauer, bring 3 white wine glasses. After changing to a small cup, Zhang Haoyi forced the 3 of them to drink up the wine in the cup. I am wholeheartedly devoted to you, you can't be half-hearted to me. Zhang Haoyi watched them finish their drinks before sitting down. After the first round of drinking, Teacher Gui's face was already flushed, but Teacher Liu was still very calm, and Ji Yuliching also blushed a little. Then Zhang Haoyi started the second round, toasting everyone with a glass. Men drank freely, but it was difficult for women. Teacher Liu and Teacher Ji Yu had no choice but to drink the second glass with their eyes closed. It was Yuliking's turn soon. Seeing Zhang Haoyi stand up, Yuliking immediately picked up the glass and said, Zhang Shuji, I wanted to toast you first, but you are the man next to me, so I have to put others before myself. Please don't mind. After that, she toasted Director Shu. Director Shu, you are my old leader. Thank you for your constant support and care. Thank you. After saying that, he raised his head and drank their wine in the glass. Zhang Haoyi stood there holding a cup, watching Yuliking acting like she was acting, but he was not annoyed and just looked at her with a smile. Ji Yuliching drank with Director Yang again and clinked glasses with the 2 beauties, but she didn't turn back to Zhang Haoyi. Zhang Haoyi kept looking at Yuliking. He wanted to see how Yuliking would toast him today. Unexpectedly, after Yuliking finished drinking, she sat down to eat the vegetables and drink the soup, and seemed to have forgotten about him. At this time, Yuliking ate her food while glancing at Zhang Haoyi from the corner of her eye, taking his expression in. She didn't want to anger him, after all, he was her parents' leader, she just wanted to deliberately tease him so that he wouldn't bully women so blatantly. Seeing that Zhang Haoyi's patience was almost exhausted, Ji Yuliching picked up the bottle, filled Zhang Haoyi's glass with wine, and then poured herself some. She raised her glass and said, Zhang Shuji, this glass of wine is for you. Please take care of me in the future. Then she tilted her head back to drink. Slow, Zhang Haoyi put his hand on Ji Yuliching's hand and said, this glass of wine doesn't seem to be drunk this way, huh? Looking at Zhang Haoyi's tilted head and his eyes staring at her, Yuliking didn't know what this man was going to do. Director Ji Yu, no, it should be Liching, you said that we are both the man and the woman by our respective sides, how should we drink this glass of wine? You tell me, how should we drink it? After Zhang Haoyi finished speaking, he looked at the others and gave a meaningful smirk. Har har. Director Shu laughed as he looked at Zhang Haoyi with ill intentions. He knew that something interesting was going to happen next. Har har, let's drink together, let's drink together. Director Yang said with a smile. Oh, that's right. Director Yang has spoken, let's drink together. Zhang Haoyi said with a smile, Li Qing, the woman next to me, let's drink together. They say drinking together means drinking from the same cup of wine. This cesium wolf. Ji Yuliching cursed in her heart. But he didn't dare show it on his face, because such jokes were nothing at the dinner table. Zhang Haoyai had already stretched out his hand and at the same time pulled Ji Yuliqing's hand and entwined it with his own. Chapter 20. Deep in the heart. When Zhang Haoyai moved his face closer, Yuliqing smelled the scent on him, a strong smell of alcohol, cigarettes, and an indescribable smell. I don't know why, at that moment, Ji Yuliqing's heart trembled subconsciously. The smell of the man made her unconsciously a little swayed. Perhaps she had not been exposed to the smell of a man for too long. The wedding wine was drunk just like that. Zhang Haoyai was very happy. After finishing his drink, he picked up a piece of dog meat for Ji Yuliqing and said, "The woman next to me can drink a lot. It really lives up to her reputation." Ji Yuliqing had never drunk with a man she was not familiar with before. After being teased by Zhang Haoyai, her face became even redder. "I can't drink anymore," Ji Yuliqing said to herself. "I have to go back early. I don't know how Xian is doing. I'm sorry, my child has a fever, I have to leave first. I'm sorry to leave you all, leaders. Liqing will apologize to you next time," Yuliqing said as she stood up and prepared to leave. Zhang Haoyai stood up and said, "Let me drive you. This place is in the north of the city, and Yuliqing's home is in the south of the city, which is indeed quite far." Ji Yuliqing was anxious to go home, so she did not refuse Zhang Haoyai's kindness. Coming out from the hot room, Yuliqing couldn't help shivering as a cold wind blew. "It's cold, get in the car." Zhang Haoyai opened the passenger door and Ji Yuliqing quickly got in. The car started. "Thank you, Zhang Shuji," Ji Yuliqing said sincerely. "Don't be too polite. Don't forget that you are the woman by my side. It is my duty to give you a gift." Zhang Haoyai continued with a smile. Ji Yuliqing's face flushed from drinking. Zhang Haoyai turned his head to look at her from time to time and asked, "Are you okay?" "It's okay, just a little cold." Zhang Haoyai immediately took off his coat and put it on Ji Yuliqing's shoulders. "It's that strong masculine scent again." Ji Yuliqing closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and said, "Thank you." Her heart was trembling with excitement again. Ji Yuliqing forced herself not to think about it. At this moment, Yuliqing felt her hand being held by a big hand. She opened her eyes and saw Zhang Haoyai staring at her closely, holding her left hand tightly in his right hand. Ji Yuliqing tried to free her hand, but found that he was holding it tightly. "Liqing, you look beautiful tonight," Zhang Haoyai said affectionately. "Zhang Shuji, please stop the car in front, I'm here," Ji Yuliqing said as she forcibly broke free from his hand. "Liqing, don't be nervous. I'll take you to your doorstep before getting off." Zhang Haoyai sped up the car. Soon they arrived at the intersection of Ji Yuliqing's house. Ji Yuliqing took off the clothes, handed them to Zhang Haoyai, and said, "Thank you, Zhang Shuji. Don't call me Zhang Shuji all the time, just call me Haoyai. If you have any problems in the future, just tell me, just treat me as your big brother," Zhang Haoyai said. Yuliqing got out of the car and walked into the alley without looking back. She didn't dare to look back, didn't dare to look at Zhang Haoyai. She knew that Zhang Haoyai hadn't left yet and was still looking at her. She quickened her pace, turned the corner quickly, and entered the house. Xian was sleeping soundly, his little nose slightly flaring, his eyes, eyebrows, mouth, and nose all so pretty. Looking at this lovely child, Ji Yuliqing's heart was filled with a mother's pride and happiness. "Because of work, I have very little time to spend with him every day. This is also a pity. Such a peaceful expression, such tender skin, just like a porcelain doll." Ji Yuliqing felt that she could not get enough of looking at her. After a long time, Ji Yuliqing went upstairs to take a bath after Ji Lanfang reminded her. "When I went up to the third floor, Ji Shuhuar had already closed the door and I didn't know whether he was asleep or not. Now they have very few opportunities to meet each other every day. Yuliqing goes out early and comes back late, and Ji Shuhuar comes home earlier than Yuliqing from her night shift. If Yuliqing has social engagements in the evening and cannot go home for dinner, they basically don't see each other that day. Yuliqing has become accustomed to the deserted house. After taking a shower and lying on the bed, Yuliqing couldn't fall asleep. Zhang Haoyai's shadow is all in my mind. Faced with a man who had more power and status than herself, and who took the initiative to show his kindness to her, Yuliqing's heart was moved. The busy work on weekdays distracted her attention, and with Xian, her life was filled to the brim and she had no time to think about other things. The appearance of Zhang Haoyi today broke the tranquility in her heart, and the desire deep in her soul jumped out. Chapter 21 Dance Together. When their son was 100 days old, Chen Hongyun's parents hosted a banquet in the village for all their relatives and friends. My uncle Li Jinsai also took time to come. Chen Hongyun hadn't seen Li Jinsai for a long time and wanted to have a good chat with his uncle, but his uncle's pager kept beeping. Li Jinsai looked at the number and knew it was Liu Chuanxiu calling. Liu Chuanxiu was waiting for him in the city, and asked him to go there in the evening and then come back for dinner. Li Jinsai wanted to refuse, but he had a desire in his heart, a desire to be alone with this woman. It was just past 2 o'clock after lunch when Liu Chuanxiu started calling him. At first, Li Jinsai ignored it and continued chatting with Chen Hongyun as usual. Chen Hongyun told him that during this period, he had been on the headlines of many Longjiang newspapers, but not the group newspapers. The last time Chen Fujin asked him to go on an interview, the article only made the headlines of Longjiang newspapers, and the group newspapers did not seem to publish it. Li Jinsai said, "Hongyun, don't worry, take your time. You just started writing, and you can make the headlines of the group newspaper and Longjiang newspaper, which is already very good. You should get in touch with Chen Fujin more and try to get him to take you out for interviews more often, so that you will have more opportunities. Don't worry about teacher Qin, he will definitely take care of you. As long as your manuscript can be published, I believe he will definitely publish it. Work hard and see if you can go to the group publicity committee next year." "Well, uncle, don't worry, I will work hard. Now whenever I think of my son, I feel that I must work hard and lay a good foundation for my son in the future," Chen Hongyun said confidently. "My boy, you are really different now that you become a father. You have really grown up this time," Li Jinsai said with relief. While they were chatting, Liu Chuanxiu called Li Jinsai no less than 4 or 5 times. Li Jinsai drove directly into the city. Soon they arrived downstairs of Hao Zilai. He drove the car to the back of Hao Zilai and found a relatively secluded place to park it. There were too many people who knew him in this city, so it was better to be careful. Liu Chuanxiu was waiting for him in the private room on the 3rd floor. The door was ajar, and Li Jinsai pushed it open and walked in. He saw Liu Chuanxiu squatting and bending over to play with the speakers, with her white skin and even the red lining of her breasts showing. Liu Chuanxiu didn't notice anyone coming in and was still bending over and fiddling with the speakers. HMPH, HMPH. Li Jinsai coughed twice deliberately. Liu Chuanxiu turned around and immediately jumped up in surprise. She flew to Li Jinsai like a little bird and hugged Li Jinsai's neck without hesitation. "Brother, you are finally here. I have been waiting for you for a whole day." Liu Chuanxiu put her arms around Li Jinsai's neck and stared at Li Jinsai. These fiery eyes made Li Jinsai's brain short-circuit for a moment, and his heart beat wildly. Li Jinsai pushed away Liu Chuanxiu's hands that were around his neck and sat down on the sofa. "Brother, have some water." Liu Chuanxiu was not embarrassed at all. She poured a cup of hot water and brought it to Li Jinsai. Then she sat down next to Li Jinsai. "Brother, do you know? I went to the market to buy vegetables by myself today, and specially asked the kitchen to make some special dishes for you. You must try them carefully later." Liu Chuanxiu still looked at Li Jinsai with such a fiery look. "Okay, I'll definitely try it," said Li Jinsai. "Brother, let's dance," Liu Chuanxiu said. "I can't dance," Li Jinsai said with a smile. "I'll teach you, come." Liu Chuanxiu took Li Jinsai's hand and stood up. "I really don't know how to do this." Li Jinsai sat still. "It's okay, I'll teach you, right?" Liu Chuanxiu forcibly pulled Li Jinsai's hand and walked to the upper floor of the private room. Then she quickly turned on the sound system and locked the door. Teresa Ting's song began to sing. So sweet, so sultry. Liu Chuanxiu walked up to Li Jinsai, naturally put her left hand on Li Jinsai's shoulder, and put her right hand into the palm of Li Jinsai's left hand. "Brother, put your arm around my waist," Liu Chuanxiu said, pulling Li Jinsai's right hand and placing it around her waist. Chapter 22 Enjoy slowly. "Brother, look up and look at me," Liu Chuanxiu said to Li Jinsai, who was looking down at his feet. Li Jinsai still kept his head down looking at his feet, and his hand just lightly touched Liu Chuanxiu's soft willow waist. His heart was pounding so hard that even his breathing had changed its rhythm. Brother, hold me tighter. Come on, like this. Liu Chuanxiu pulled Li Jinsai's hand around her waist again. Raise your head and look at me. Li Jinsai finally raised his head. As soon as he met Liu Chuanxiu's flashing eyes, he was almost electrocuted. He was about to move his head away, but Liu Chuanxiu pulled him back. Liu Chuanxiu put her arms around his neck and looked at him with fierce eyes. Brother, why do you always hide from me? Do you know how much I love you? Liu Chuanxiu said faintly, from the first moment I saw you, I felt that I was finished. I was trapped. Brother, do you know? I dream about you every night. As she spoke, Liu Chuanxiu put her face close to Li Jinsai's. At this moment, Li Jinsai no longer had the strength to resist. He just felt that his whole body and mind were so excited by Liu Chuanxiu. The man's strong desire instantly occupied his brain. Don't you like me, brother? Liu Chuanxiu put her hot lips to Li Jinsai's mouth. Brother, I want you to love me. Liu Chuanxiu's soft lips were completely pressed against Li Jinsai's mouth. Brother. Liu Chuanxiu murmured, I love you. Li Jinsai couldn't hold it in any longer. Until both of them were exhausted. Brother, you are so awesome. I love you so much. Again. No, brother, save it and enjoy it slowly. Do you really want to tire me to death? Liu Chuanxiu said coquettishly. Chapter 23 You are my son. Li Jinsai hugged Liu Chuanxiu tightly. Knock knock knock, there's a knock on the door. Li Jinsai looked at Liu Chuanxiu with some horror. It's okay, he's my brother. Liu Chuanxiu stood up and said. Sister, can you serve the food now? A young man's voice came from outside the door. You can go now. Liu Chuanxiu said towards the door. Li Jinsai quickly cleaned himself up. Fortunately, Teraserting's singing covered up the noise throughout the process, otherwise the sound would have been heard outside the door. Liu Chuanxiu quickly put on her clothes, cleaned the battlefield, and opened the door in high spirits. After a while, a young and handsome boy came up with the dishes. Chunwei, this is Li Shuji. Liu Chuanxiu said to his brother. Wan Chunwei is a handsome man, with eyes as smart as Liu Chuanxiu's, and he looks like a cunning young man. Hello, Li Shuji. Wan Chunwei looked at Li Jinsai and called respectfully. You two siblings look quite alike, said Li Jinsai. Otherwise, why call each other brother and sister? Right. Liu Chuanxiu said with a smile, come on, brother, eat the food. Chunwei, serve the rest of the food later, otherwise it will get cold soon. Okay, I'll go talk to the kitchen. Wan Chunwei said and went downstairs, closing the door. Liu Chuanxiu scooped a bowl of hot sun pot soup for Li Jinsai, which was full of the flavor of Chinese medicine. What is this? Li Jinsai said as he looked at the black soup in the bowl. Bullwhip soup, brother, it's bullwhip stewed with angelica and longan. Liu Chuanxiu leaned over to Li Jinsai's ear and said with a smile, it's very tonic. Brother, it will replenish everything you just released. Li Jinsai seemed to be aroused again. It turned out that she had prepared everything long ago. He took a sip and said, it tastes good. You can have some too. This is specially prepared for you. Liu Chuanxiu said seductively. So you've already made preparations? Li Jinsai said with a smile, you even prepared a nourishing soup for me. Brother, do you know? I have waited for this day for too long. From the first time I saw you, I have been looking forward to it, looking forward to the stars and the moon, and finally I look forward to the sun rising in the east. Brother, you are my son. Liu Chuanxiu leaned over and said coquettishly in Li Jinsai's ear again. Come, have some food too. Li Jinsai scooped some soup into Liu Chuanxiu's bowl and picked up some vegetables. He no longer dared to look into Liu Chuanxiu's eyes, because he had no immunity against her. Although he had just completely released the potential that had been suppressed for many years, at this moment, the woman's words. Brother, eat more. Liu Chuanxiu kept picking up dishes and serving soup to Li Jinsai. She wished that the man would eat all the dishes she ordered in one go, as if he would immediately store back the nutrients that had nourished her. Brother, I also bought a pager. Liu Chuanxiu took out a pager and said, Brother, this is in Chinese. If you miss me, just call me and leave me a message. I promise I will fly to you right away. Liu Chuanxiu stuffed the small note with the number on it into Li Jinsai's pocket, then held Li Jinsai's face and took a sip. While eating, Li Jinsai recalled the happiest experience of his life that Liu Chuanxiu had brought him, which made him feel the enjoyment he had never experienced before in his life. However, Li Jinsai never expected that the woman who helped him find the most beautiful state of life today would bring such a great blow to his family in the future. Chapter 24: The First Pot of Gold. The Chinese New Year was coming, and Chen Hongyun became busy. His work at the teaching support center had long been finished, and he was busy earning money for the Chinese New Year. Now that he has a son, Chen Hongyun feels that there are too many places to spend money. Milk alone takes up half of his salary every month. Add in some social activities, and life is really tight. Yulizhen's mother originally wanted to give some money to the couple, but Chen Hongyun refused to accept it and even scolded Yu Lizhen for it. Yu Lizhen had good intentions, but she was treated so badly for no reason. She dared not say anything. She could only hold it in her heart and say, "What's so great about it? If you have the ability, go and make more money." Chen Hongyun seemed to see the resentment in Yu Lizhen's eyes, and at the end of the year he was determined to make some money to celebrate the new year. Otherwise, he didn't know how to spend the new year. After much deliberation, Chen Hongyun found the webmaster Zhang Heping. At the end of the year, each school would give out some benefits. Chen Hongyun wanted to monopolize these benefits, purchase them in bulk, and then sell them to each primary school, making a profit from the difference. He decided to cooperate with Zhang Heping, doing the work by himself and splitting the profits in half. Chen Hongyun tactfully explained this idea to Zhang Heping. Zhang Heping didn't speak for a long time, and Chen Hongyun was very nervous. He didn't know what Zhang Heping was thinking. Did he think the profit was too small and wanted to split it 40% and 60%? But if that was the case, his profit would be too low. Zhang Heping didn't expect that Chen Hongyun would think of making this money. He was also short of money. His family depended on his salary. His wife was from the countryside and had no job. His son was not doing well. He had to support for people with his salary alone. It was very stressful. Zhang Heping also wanted to make money, but he was afraid that making money in the teaching support station would have an adverse impact on him. Now the idea proposed by Chen Hongyun is quite good. Zhang Heping was silent for a while, then said, "This is good. It will provide some benefits to teachers in various schools and save the principals from being hesitant. I will mention this matter at the year-end meeting." In this way, Chen Hongyun started his first business in his life. In the end, Chen Hongyun gave Zhang Heping 5,200 yuan and earned more than 5,000 yuan himself. This was the first pot of gold Chen Hongyun earned in his life. This was a huge sum of money at the time. It was equivalent to Chen Hongyun's annual salary. When Chen Hongyun received this large sum of money, his heart was pounding. This was the first time he had tasted the benefits of rent-seeking. We will do it again next year, and try to give teachers more benefits. It would be best if we could give them all the things for the Chinese New Year, so that they don't have to buy anything and can just buy everything here. Thinking that these things can bring him a lot of money, Chen Hongyun is looking forward to the arrival of the next year-end. Chen Hongyun bought 2 sets of high-end children's clothing for his son and a fine woolen coat for Yu Lizhen. Yu Lizhen wore the coat that Chen Hongyun bought for her and looked at herself in the mirror again and again, with a look of surprise on her face. This was the first time Chen Hongyun had bought something for her since he had met her, and it was also Yu Lizhen's best piece of clothing. Yu Lizhen felt Chen Hongyun's love for her. She felt that this man was not like what her mother said, and did not know how to love her. It was just that his way of expressing himself was different. In addition, this man was very domineering and he had the final say. It's okay to be domineering, as long as a man can make money and treats himself well. What's wrong with being a little domineering? Yu Lizhen felt sweet in her heart. Chen Hongyun also changed into new clothes from head to toe, and took his son and Yu Lizhen to Longjian Group Park for a trip. He also planned to give some gifts to his teacher Chen Fujian and his uncle Li Jinsai. These gifts had to be given, and they couldn't be too shabby. He first visited Chen Fujian. "Hongyun, I want to tell you a good news in advance." Chen Fujian was a little excited after taking a few sips. The article about Zhangjian can at least win the 3rd prize of the Provincial Good News Award next year. "Really? That's great," Chen Hongyun said excitedly. "If this can be awarded, then it means that he is also a winner. The group's Good News Award, this is a big award in the news category." Chen Hongyun was a little excited when he thought about winning this award. If he can really win the award, then the weight of entering the propaganda committee will be increased. In this way, he can enter the propaganda committee sooner. Chen Hongyun's confidence suddenly increased. Chapter 25 Power. Come on, big brother, I'll toast you a glass. Chen Hongyun raised a full glass of wine, clinked glasses with Chen Fujian, and drank it all in one gulp. Chen Hongyun was delighted after this meal. Chen Hongyun, full of joy, went to his uncle Li Jinsai's house again. Li Jinsai saw the 2 packs of cigarettes Chen Hongyun was holding and said, "You've made a fortune." "I didn't make a lot of money, but I made a little bit of it," Chen Hongyun said with a smile. "You, kid, have also learned how to rent power." Li Jinsai said, "Everyone in Huangma knows that you sell mushrooms, black fungus and salted duck in all the teaching auxiliary stations." "Uncle, I didn't make a mistake," Chen Hongyun said tremblingly. "Zhang Heping is really short of money. He lets you do this under his name." Li Jinsai said, "Is it wrong? If you are told you have it, you have it. If you are told you don't have it, you don't have it either. But don't overdo it. Do you know what people say about you?" "What did you say about me?" Chen Hongyun looked like he was listening attentively. "They said you were selling it too expensively. Even more expensive than on the market," said Li Jinsai. "Uncle, this is absolutely a rumor. I definitely made some money, but it was definitely not higher than the market price. I investigated before setting the price," Chen Hongyun said, looking like he was being wronged. "Let's not talk about this," Li Jinsai said. "Selling these little things is not a big deal. Now, not to mention you, many family members of leading cadres are doing this. However, in the future, try to do less of this kind of thing and spend more time on your own business." "That's for sure. Uncle, I have no choice. We have a child now, and we have to solve the problem of food for the whole family, right? But don't worry, I won't forget my work." Chen Hongyun said, "I went to teacher Chen Fujian today, and he told me a good news. He said that the article about Jiangjin may win the Provincial Good News Award next year. That's a good thing. If you can have an award-winning press release, you can see if you can get a chance to go to the propaganda committee earlier next year." Li Jinsai said, "However, it's better if you have a separate article to be published in the group newspaper, so that it will be more convincing." "Okay, next time I'll talk to teacher Chen and see if I can write a separate report for the group. I'll talk to teacher Qin Zhihui again and ask him to give you special care. Try your best to get 1 or 2 published in the first half of the year. The group may have opportunities in the second half of the year," Li Jinsai said. "Okay, thank you, uncle. I will try my best. Teacher Qin will be back during the Chinese New Year. Come with me to see him then." "Okay. I'll definitely go." Before leaving, Li Jinsai gave Chen Hongyun a box of Tanhua Dak, which contained 6 bottles. "Take it with you. It's not for you, but for your father to drink," Li Jinsai said. "Also, don't buy anything from me next time. Don't I know how much money you have? You should save some money. You will have many places to spend it when the time comes." Chen Hongyun didn't hesitate and went downstairs carrying the wine. He knew that his uncle's family had a lot of cigarettes and wine. But he noticed that his aunt Cai Juyin looked unhappy. Li Jinsai was in a good mood and didn't care about Cai Juyin's expression. This woman is so partial. She gave all the things in the house to her parents' family and brothers and sisters' families. Can't I give some to my nephew? Not wanting to pay attention to her, Li Jinsai let out a breath and returned to the study on the second floor. Chapter 26 Return to Gujiazhuang. On the 26th day of the lunar year, Jiyu Shuhua carried a lot of bags, and Jiyu Liqing held Xian, and the two returned to Gujiazhuang together. She wanted to take Xian to stay at her mother's house for a few days and then return to the city to celebrate the new year on the 29th. When Mother Yi Haihua saw her daughter, son-in-law and nephew all coming, she was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. Yi Haihua took Xian from her daughter and praised him. "Oh, look at my precious grandson. He looks more and more like his father. Look at his nose and mouth. Wow, they look exactly like him. It's really irrelevant." Jiyu Shuhua felt really uncomfortable listening to this. "This child doesn't look like me in any way, why do people always say he looks like me?" Jiyu Liqing seemed to notice Jiyu Shuhua's displeasure, so she took Xian from her mother and said, "Mom, where's Hua Qing? Isn't he home? This silly boy might have run out to play again. I'll call him back." Yi Haihua said, and then shouted in the distance, Hua Qing, come back, sister is here." The voice spread very far. Ji Shuhua thought it was funny, but Ji Liqing was used to it, as her mother always called them brother and sister like this. When she was little, Yu Liqing often skipped rubber ropes with her friends outside after school, often forgetting to go home for dinner. When it got dark, her mother would find that she had not returned home yet, and she would stand in the corridor of her house and shout at the top of her voice, "Liqing, Liqing, come home for dinner." Almost the whole village could hear it. After a while, Yu Liqing would appear in front of her mother, sweating profusely. At this time, she would inevitably be scolded by her mother. Ji Huaqing was the same today. He appeared from some corner, sweating profusely and with a black face. Ji Huaqing is 14 years old this year. After lunch, Ji Shuhua went back first, and Ji Liqing carried Zian to Gujiazhuang Primary School. When I walked into the school, it was empty, without a single person in sight. Weeds had grown on the grass, and the children had not played there for a long time. When she came to her old classroom, Yu Liqing felt as if she was in another world. Nothing here has changed, but my life has taken a different path, and I have no connection with Gujiazhuang Primary School anymore. Thinking of the little things in the past, Ji Liqing felt heavy in her heart. Chen Hongyun's appearance appeared in her mind again, so clear and vivid. Chen Hongyun teaching in the classroom, Chen Hongyun playing football with the children on the grass field, Chen Hongyun smiling silly when he saw her. A year and a half has passed. I wonder how he is doing now? The world is so big. For so long, in this small Chunjiang group, she has never met him again. In Ji Liqing's heart, she seemed to be hoping that at some time and place, she could meet him unexpectedly and see him. But what if I saw him? Should I tell him about my unhappy marriage? Tell him about my husband's incompetence? It's better not to meet. There is a song that goes, "It's better to miss each other than to meet." It's better to miss each other. Let us keep a little bit of nostalgia for each other. The sun was about to set and the temperature dropped a little. Ji Liqing felt a little cold and hurriedly carried Zian back. After the Chinese New Year, the new semester begins, and Yu Liqing has to work at full speed again. She has successfully completed the probation period and has officially started to take charge of the entire kindergarten. Ji Lanfang told Ji Liqing that this semester would be the final transition period, and she would officially retire in the next semester, and would hand over everything to Ji Liqing and let her be the principal. Zhang Haoyai occasionally came to watch the rehearsal of the program. After more contact, Ji Liqing learned that Zhang Haoyai started as an ordinary clerk in the film and worked his way up step by step through his own efforts. In less than 10 years, Zhang Haoyai made a triple jump from an ordinary rural film worker to a film secretary. To be able to work as a secretary in Hapu district, one must be on good terms with the group secretary. Without the group secretary's permission, no one can dream of this. From this point, it can be seen that Zhang Haoyai is quite resourceful. So Zhang Haoyai must have a good relationship with the current group secretary Li Jiannan. Chapter 27, In Your Arms. More than a month later, Ji Liqing received a notice from the Group's cultural committee that the program would have its first rehearsal in mid-April. Ji Liqing specifically called together teacher Liu and Gui Maimai and gave them a detailed explanation of the matter. After the first rehearsal, all 5 programs of Chunjiang Group Kindergarten received unanimous praise. At noon, the Cultural Committee and the Education Committee hosted a banquet for the teachers who were rehearsing at Chunjiang Hotel. Zhang Haoyai also arrived. He still sat next to Ji Liqing, making Liqing the woman by his side. Because both the director and deputy director were there, the occasion was quite high and everyone had to drink some white wine. Ji Liqing didn't want to be reserved today, so she decided to toast a few leaders and get closer to them. First, Director Wu of the Education Commission came over to toast everyone. Wu Jinquan was very familiar with Ji Liqing. He looked at Ji Liqing and said, "Little Director Ji, you are really better than your teacher. Today's program shows your leadership ability. Well done. On behalf of the Education Commission, I toast you a glass to thank you for your hard work. Of course, I also want to thank the 2 teachers in charge of rehearsal. Come, let's drink this glass together." After drinking, Wu Jinquan turned the bottom of the glass upwards and said, "I don't drink, but I'm making an exception today to show my gratitude." Naturally, everyone did not dare to neglect it and drank their wine in the glass one after another. Then the director of the cultural committee came, and everyone had to drink as well. The leaders went to each table and toasted, and now it was the turn of the smaller players to express their loyalty to the leaders. The leaders of other units were basically men, and they moved very quickly. As soon as the leaders finished toasting and returned to the table, before they sat down, they came over with wine glasses and bottles. Ji Yulicheng drank her soup and ate her vegetables quietly, but her eyes were on what was going on at the table of the leaders. When she had almost filled her stomach, the wine on the table had been almost finished, and the leaders were taking the opportunity to eat something. Ji Yulicheng walked towards the leadership table holding a wine glass and a bottle. When she came to Wu Jinquan, Ji Yulicheng filled Director Wu's glass with wine, then raised her glass and said, "Director Wu, thank you very much for your trust and cultivation. Licheng drinks this glass. What a delight!" The people around her cheered for her. After drinking this cup, Ji Yulicheng couldn't stop herself from toasting all the leaders present. She began to feel dizzy and her face became hot. Back at the table, Ji Yulicheng sat down and touched her forehead, which felt a little hot. Zhang Haoyai went to each table to toast, and when he came back and saw Ji Yulicheng's appearance, he knew that she must have drunk too much. "Would you like some more hot soup?" Zhang Haoyai asked. "No, thank you," said Ji Yulicheng. Everyone had finished drinking and began to leave one after another. Ji Yulicheng stood up, feeling very dizzy. She quickly held onto the table and managed to stand. Zhang Haoyai quickly supported her and said, "Shall I take you home?" "Okay," Yulicheng said, supporting her head. Sitting in the car, Ji Yulicheng was still very dizzy and felt a little dizzy. She had not exceeded her limit today, so why was she so dizzy? Ji Yulicheng felt very strange. Normally, she would drink so much and nothing would happen. Maybe she had a cold. Ji Yulicheng closed her eyes. "Go home directly?" Zhang Haoyai asked. Ji Shuhua must be unhappy to see him coming home drunk like this, even though she won't say it. Her mother-in-law is probably the same. She should go sober up first. Ji Yulicheng thought, and then said with her eyes still closed, "I want to find a place to sit down first. I feel so dizzy." Zhang Haoyai immediately turned the car around and drove in the opposite direction. The car drove out of the city and headed towards the national highway. Ji Yulicheng kept her eyes closed, as if she had fallen asleep. The car drove into a small courtyard in the suburbs. It was deserted inside, with only a big yellow dog lying at the gate. When the car came in, the dog didn't bark or jump, but came up to it, wagging its tail, looking affectionate. Zhang Haoyai stopped the car and came to the passenger side, trying to help Ji Yulicheng get out of the car, but he found that Ji Yulicheng was really asleep with red cheeks. Zhang Haoyai's heart suddenly started beating wildly. He wanted to wake her up, but after hesitating, he held back. She seemed to be sleeping so peacefully, as if she had fallen into a sweet dream. He didn't have the heart to disturb her sweet dream. So he ran to the door and opened it, then turned back and carried her out of the car. Yulicheng was petite to begin with, and Zhang Haoyai was tall, so it was not difficult for him to hold her in his arms. Walking into the room, Zhang Haoyai slowly put Yulicheng on the bed. Just as he was about to reach out and touch her fair and delicate skin, he didn't expect Yulicheng to suddenly grab his hand and hold him in her arms. Zhang Haoyai's heart started beating wildly.